So today we celebrate the presentation of Mary in the temple. Although this is not found in the scriptures, it was recorded in the apocryphal gospel. Regardless of how historical this fact is, I think it is historically very probable that Mary would have been presented at the temple, because in those days, parents would have often presented their children to the Lord, like the firstborn child, the firstborn son. And certainly it would have extended even to the other children, because parents always recognize that a child is a great gift from God. Those women who have difficulties bearing children will understand how great this gift is. And therefore, every mother who gives birth to a child would have been very grateful for this great gift that God has given to them. And certainly, because every child is a great gift from God, we want to thank God for His blessings and for His love. But more importantly, because the child is a gift from God, then the child, in truth, belongs to God. The child does not belong to us. But we have been appointed as the custodian, the guardian of this child. And every parent, therefore, would have been conscious of their responsibility to raise the child according to what God has intended for this child. And so when a parent presents a child to the Lord at the temple, just as today, in our days, we present our children for baptism when they are newly born, because we want to consecrate the child to God. We want God to protect the child. We want God to be with the child, so that the child will grow up to be truly a reflection of God's love and His grace. And certainly, therefore, every mother, every father would want their children to be truly given to God, so that God will protect them and will dwell within, as we read in today's first reading from Prophet Zechariah, "Sing, daughter of Zion, for I am coming to dwell in the middle of you." It is the Lord who speaks. And so with this in mind, therefore, as parents, when we present our child to the Lord, this is more than just getting our children baptized or thanking the Lord for the gift of a baby. But more importantly, we want to be sure that this child would live according to what God intends for this child. Every parent has this grave responsibility to make sure that the child will do the will of God, that the child will find his vocation in life, that the child will live a meaningful and purposeful life, that the child will flourish, will grow, and truly become reflective of God in him or in her. And so this tremendous responsibility placed upon parents to make sure that this child will become the person, the child that God has always intended for this person. And so helping a child to find his way, to find his vocation, to find, most of all, God in his own life is something that every parent must strive to do. Because one of the most important gifts we want to give to our children is the gift of faith in God, so that they will be able not just to become God-abiding, but more importantly, to know that God is with them in their journey in life, that they are not alone, and that their ultimate goal is not on this earth. Their ultimate goal is to be with the Lord at the end of their life. And that is a task of parents. And I'm very sure, therefore, that, today when we celebrate the presentation of the Blessed Virgin Mary, Joachim and Anne, who presented Mary at the temple, would have these thoughts in their minds. And they too would have kind of consecrated Mary and asked the Lord, what do you want us to do for the child, and how they will bring the child up according to the faith. And so true enough, we can be very sure that Joachim and Anne, they must be exemplary parents. They must have been people of deep faith, deep hope, and charity. And this must have the kind of inspired Mary in her own life. And so, again, the great responsibility. Parents, you don't live for yourself. Parents are called to be exemplary. You are called to mentor your children. It is true for all leaders, just as the bishop is called to mentor for the people of God. And as a parent, you are supposed to mentor your children. They must look to you as people of faith, people of hope, people of charity, so that they will be inspired by your life. If parents have no faith, then of course you are depriving of your children the greatest gift, that is the gift of God. If parents don't have faith, then your children will lose their faith, and they have lost the most important thing in their life. So parents are important. They need to really, really deepen their faith, not just for their own salvation, but for the salvation of their children. And so that these parents too will also, because of their faith, they live lives of hope, even in pain, in struggles, in sufferings, in difficulties. They show their children what it means to have hope in God, that God will be with them, and God will journey and will help them to overcome. And most of all, of charity and love. So that is the reason why today, when we read the gospel, Jesus was very clear, and Jesus certainly would have again learned from Mary, just as Mary learned from her parents. And remember, we have Mary and the brothers of Jesus, his cousins. They were looking for him. And Jesus said, "Who is my mother? Who are my brothers? Anyone who does the will of my Father in heaven, he is my brother and sister and mother." Of course, in the context of St. Luke and St. Matthew, Mary is the one who really does the will of God. And therefore, for Jesus, what is important, therefore, is that anyone who does the will of God is close to him. And that was how perhaps Jesus would have learned from Mary, his mother, how to recognize the presence of God in the lives of others. And so it is within this context too. When we talk about presentation of Mary, the parents have a grave responsibility because they're the first catechists. But we cannot stop there, because Mary was presented at the temple. The temple, of course, signifies the faith of Israel, the faith of the people of God. And so when we raise a child, it is not just the work of parents alone. Parents on their own will not suffice in raising up the child in faith, because the child is dependent on many factors. That is why sometimes parents, should not feel too guilty. Don't blame yourself too much, and don't bang your head against the wall because, your son has stopped coming to church, or your son has lost his faith. If you have done your best as a parent, your best as a mother, to the best possible, what we call ability. We are not perfect, but you have tried your best. And then your child, when he grows up, he makes the wrong company and whatever it is, and he loses the faith. You don't have to bang your head against the wall and say, "No, terrible, I'm a bad mother, I'm a bad, lousy mother, I didn't." That is not true, unless you have not done your job. If you have done your job, then we can just surrender them to the Lord, because there are many factors that are involved in the raising up of a child in faith. It's not just you alone. Your brothers, your sisters, your siblings, your relatives, your friends, his school friends, the school, the community, everybody, the catechists, the teachers, everybody has a part to play. And so the failure, therefore, is not just the parents. If the parents haven't done their job, it is the failure of the community, which means that the community is not setting an example. The community is not helping the child to grow in faith. The community is not providing the ambience. The community is not supportive of the young people. The community is lacking faith. So the bigger problem is not just the parents. The bigger problem is the community. Because sometimes even the parents lack faith, but if the community has deep faith, the child will have a sense of belonging. The child will find a community of faith, and the child will grow in faith. So it's not just parents alone. So there are many factors. Of course, the child also has to respond accordingly. But what we want to say, therefore, is that when we present a child in the temple signifies the church, the body of Christ. And all of us, therefore, we are co-responsible in helping every child to grow in faith, every child to discover his vocation. And so together, let us support each other. Let us support our parents. Let us support one another. Let us support our young people so that they too will offer themselves as a living sacrifice to the Lord.